Hello, this is Dr. Jeanette Raymond, psychologist, psychotherapist, and relationship expert, here to talk to you about something that bothers a lot of people. So many people I see ask me, why can't I control my anger? It's only little tiny things that irritate me. They're no big deal. I know people are not intending to hurt me. Why do I have to just explode for no reason at all and be like my horrible dad or my horrible mom, because that's all they ever did? Why do I have to get all loud and abusive? Why can't I just be calm and just explain myself without getting angry? And so you're angry about getting angry, so that kind of adds to it. So there are basically 3 or 4 reasons why you feel like you may not be able to control your anger. And the first one is because you're actually in a war. And in a war, you have to be angry in order to win. And you ask me, what are you talking about? What war do you mean? Well, there's a war going on inside you about whether you want to be angry, abusive, loud, mean, uncaring, like your one or other of your parents, or you want to be angelic, calm, someone who never gets ruffled, nothing bothers them, the epitome of calmness and sereneness. And when you have that war going on inside you, you're going to get angry and explode because you can't do either of them. Sometimes you are going to explode and you're not going to be serene. So whichever way you try to be, you're going to fail, and that failure is going to make you angry. So let me tell you a story about Sandra, who, as a young child, heard her father yell and scream at her mother all the time. Nothing was ever good enough. Whatever her mother did, or the children did, it always irritated him. He would yell and scream, and they would be shocked. They would literally be frozen with shock. And Sandra didn't know whether she should take care of her mom, who was like whimpering in the corner because of the abuse, or she should take care of herself. And of course, she was frozen because she couldn't do either. She wasn't old enough. She didn't understand those feelings, but she had a sense of protecting her mom, but not herself. So as she grew up, she learned to kind of become a shock absorber, of taking all this anger and the way that it was done by her dad all the time, with no model of how to protect yourself or fight back or engage in a situation where you could bring things to a heel and deal with both sides of the argument. That was not possible. So she grew up building this shield around her, that nothing was ever going to bother her. She wasn't going to allow people like her dad to ever get to her. She was going to be always peaceful, calm, collected, patient, understanding. She was going to be this mother of mothers, this angel from heaven, who would never get ruffled, who would always be there to comfort other people, who never let anything get to her. But of course, later on in life, she married, and she found that her husband would do irritating things, and the slightest little thing that irritated her, she would suddenly explode, and she would be ridden with guilt and shame, because that's the opposite of what she wanted to be. She knew her husband did not mean to upset her, was just pointing out something that maybe, she hadn't finished the laundry, or where to find some book that he'd lost, something like that. And so she felt this terrible guilt and shame, castigated herself, punished herself, hoping that this bad part of her that was just like her dad would get slashed into pieces, and she could take it and bury it in a lockbox forevermore, and then she'd be free of it. And all that would be left would be this mother, this angel, this, heavenly being that was all goodness and light and purity and ability to take anything and never get ruffled, and everything would be fine. But of course, that was impossible, because she's human. She's not a heavenly being, and nor is she the devil incarnate like her father. She has elements of both, but they're at war with each other. So when they're at war, they build up layers and layers and layers of hate and shame and humiliation from her dad, anger and shame about not being able to control herself, worried that she might upset her husband too much and lose him. All those layers and layers and layers and layers of horrible, horrible, yucky feelings would not just sit there. They would get activated by the tiniest little thing, because it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, like a volcano erupting, and all the magma would flow out, and it would feel like hot lava burning everyone around her, but mostly herself, burning her with shame and feeling humiliated herself that she could not stop being like her dad. So that's one reason. There's a second reason is when she tries to be the angel, the good girl, the serene girl, the patient girl, the comforting girl, that I can take anything girl, nothing ever ruffles me girl, when she tried to be that way, she didn't take care of herself, because she wanted her goodness to be valued by her loved ones, particularly her husband and her colleagues and so on, and that they in turn would take care of her. They'd say, what a good girl you are. You're always there for me. You always take care of me. I can rely on you. You're the best. And so she wanted them to take care of her by valuing what she gave them, which was a sacrificial lamb. I'm here to take care of you and your feelings, and you should see that. You should take note of it, and then in turn take care of me and make sure that I don't have a reason to get angry with you, that I don't have a reason to feel provoked, and that I'm always in this calm place because you only show me love and care and you never let me erupt. But of course that's not possible in the real world. People are not going to know that, and they're not going to take on the job of being responsible for her not having negative feelings. So that's number two. She's putting the responsibility in the wrong place. Number three is Sandra wants to come to therapy and have her therapist get rid of her anger, but by never seeing it, never touching it, never smelling it, never getting to know it. So the therapist has her hands tied behind her back because Sandra doesn't want to show it. So if I can't see it, I'm the therapist, I can't see it, I can't smell it, I can't touch it, I don't know what it's like, I don't know where it's hiding. If we can't talk about it, if it's not there, then how can we deal with it? How can we manage it? How can we tame it? How can we make it more normal? And for Sandra, that was the worst possible thing she could have told to her when she came to therapy, that you've actually got to get to know your anger by showing it. You've got to see the signs in your body. When you get excited, when your heart rate goes up, when you can hear your tone getting a little bit fractious, when your voice is getting raised, when you're feeling uneasy and your breath is coming very quick, those are all signs that you're getting angry and flustered, but you're trying to control it and you can't. So you have to be able to see it and feel it and touch it and smell it in the room. So then we get to know what it's like. We get to know where it's coming from. We get to know what triggers it. We get to know what it's associated with in the past. We get to know it. And by getting to know it, we get to be in charge of it. And we don't give the responsibility to everybody else for not making us angry. Now, it took Sandra a long, long, long time. I had to train her to get to know all the signs in her body. You know, the flush in her face, the clenching of her muscles, the tightness of her jaw, the quickness of her breath, the tension headaches, the making of fists, the shaking of her legs, and trying to control the terrible tremors of the volcano inside her. And it was only then, when she felt safe enough to do that with me, that we got to know where that anger was coming from, and we created a space for her to get rid of the old child shield she was using, which was freeze and pretend that nothing's happening, because that was the safest thing to do when she was a child and her father was being loud and yelling and abusive and intimidating. Never stopped and never cared about anything. She built a wall of ice around her, and it worked. It's not working anymore because the ice has melted. She's feeling it all. So what we did was, over the time, and it was a long time because this is difficult, we built a different kind of shield where she could acknowledge that certain things would get to her, because you're not ever going to get rid of your past. Your past is your past. What you want to do is not let it own you and dictate how you behave in your present or your future. So you have to have a sense of where it's coming from and not be little Sandra and freeze. You have to be big Sandra and say, okay, I'm having that feeling again where I need to freeze and I can't, and so I'm getting very frightened right now. So it's basically a fear. The anger turns into a fear that you're going to lose it. And if you lose it, then you're liable to become a mess. Nobody's going to want you. You're not going to be this wonderful super person who can take care of other people and be there for them and absorb all their stuff and all the rest of it. The fear is that you're going to crumble into a mess. And what I helped Sandra do was to feel contained, that I was her shield until she built her own with my help, which is what somebody should have done with her when she was little. That's how children learn. Their parents and other loved ones help them create an emotional barrier that lets things in and out. That's the opposite of just freezing or going bananas and losing it all. She didn't have that opportunity because her mother was too traumatized, and so was she. So I helped her recover from that trauma, letting her feelings out in the room that I could then absorb and help her create a sensitive enough barrier where she could have her feelings, but without feeling that she was going to lose it all and have no one in her life and be ashamed of herself, or that she had to be little Sandra and freeze and take the risk of exploding. And that's how we did it, and it worked. But it took a long time because of her history and her unwillingness to get in touch with it and get to know it, and her sense that she had to give the responsibility for that onto anyone else, which is what little Sandra should have been able to do. Give that responsibility to take care of on someone else. She was still doing it as grown-up Sandra, and it wasn't working, and it was making her more fearful and angry. And of course, the first one, you remember, she was trying to be all goodness and light and perfection and not be the devil and try to cut that piece out, which is a war you can't win. So if you have any stories about your experiences like that, why you can't control your anger, be happy to hear from you in the comment section. Bye for now.